Hey everybody, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. It's our first show of 2023, if you can believe that. We have a great show tonight. I hope it's a great show anyway. I'm just getting over a head cold, and I'm going to do my best. I don't know how this is going to work out, but I couldn't miss the show. So I had to do this first show with you guys tonight, and we got a lot to get to, the Discord question of the week, the news, and so much more. So I hope you guys are ready to be wildly entertained, because I'm sure going to do my best to hit that mark. So buckle up. We're going in. And that brings us to this, folks. Welcome, everybody. Hope you guys are doing great. Thank you so much for joining me on tonight's show. As always, it's a sincere pleasure to do the Paranormal Portal with you. And if you notice, there's something a little bit different in the studio. What is that, you may say? My chair. I got a new chair. It came today, courtesy of Delta Airlines, because turns out if they oversell a flight, they give you sweetheart deals to give up your seat. And that's what the Portal family did on their way home from Minnesota for the holidays, is we just took that sweetheart deal, and it helped me get this different chair. I had a gaming chair last, and they looked really comfortable when I looked at them. And I was like, oh, I should have one of those chairs. It looks nice. You can recline them. You can kick the, like literally it's like look like a cross between, a chair to sit up straight or to kick back and lounge in. However, what I didn't know is the seats on those things are like bricks. So after about 3 years of using it, or 2 years, or however long, I was just like, oh my God, everything's starting to hurt. I'm like, no, it's time for an upgrade. And like I said, Delta made it possible. I don't know if they do that kind of stuff often, but anyway, it's a much more comfortable chair. I'm sitting a little lower than I'm used to, but that's okay, because I'm much more comfortable, and that makes me happy. I hope my voice is going to hold out. Like I said, I've had this kind of ongoing bug since I got home, and I really think I'm on the mend. I'm doing pretty good now. The mucus flow has stemmed a little bit, and so that's going good. And yes, Mom, I'm taking Mucinex. And I'm feeling better. It's just I hope my voice holds out because this is already the most I've talked in several days. So I just a little bit ago I was on as a guest co-host with Daniela on Hidden Existence, and we interviewed Scott Carpenter, who is a fantastic guy and really well known in the Bigfoot community. It was a lot of fun to talk with him, and I only had a few coughing fits. So little bit of foreshadowing. If I tuck away to something else, or if I go to a different screen, that's probably me coughing. I'm doing pretty good now, I think. So this is we'll see where we get. But thank you, Sugar Britches. Yeah, she was there. So was Maggie. I saw Maggie was in there too over at Hidden Existence. So thank you to those of you that showed up over there and watched that show as well. I know Daniela appreciates it a bunch, and I appreciate it a bunch. So without further ado, I guess we got a lot to get to here on the portal. I'm alone. Don was going to be here, but I contacted him and said, look, fair warning, I've not been feeling good. And he said, as many times as he's been sick this year already, he's like, I just can't risk it. And I can't blame him, I wanted him to have the opportunity to say, yeah, I'm good, I'm coming anyway, or not. And I totally respect that. So it's you and me. We're it. We're the show tonight. So you guys will have to help carry me through this. That's always a good co-host, helps carry the host through. So if you can step in with me and keep it rolling. But yeah, New Year's greetings to you, Wonder Woman. And Happy New Year to you all. This is the first show of the Paranormal Portal in 2023. It's incredible. I don't know if you guys experience this too, but I'm here to tell you, the older I get, the faster the years click by. It's like, I swear to God, Minion was born yesterday. And now, boom, he's 7 years old. It's like, my God, where's the time going? I don't know, but I guess life is a time anomaly too, when you come to think of it. But the years are going faster, and hopefully, at least as a global society, we're moving towards something better. So hopefully, keep all those good vibes rolling, and we'll try to manifest a better 2023. Anyway, so I guess probably the best place to start is where we always start, here on the portal, and that is to check out the news. I've got a few articles pulled up, and hopefully they'll be interesting. And if not, just remember, I'm not feeling real well, so you're getting what you paid for. Unless you did pay and you remember, and then I'm sorry. That's all I can tell you. Or you super chat or whatever. But I do my best to bring you the best shows I know how. And today, I just know it's time for the news. So let's check out the news, ladies and gentlemen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal News Desk, and I'm your anchor, Brent Thomas, here to keep you informed. And the object of the Paranormal Portal News is to cover as much interesting news as I could find, and hopefully, if I've done my job well, you will leave here having learned something you didn't know before you came. So if I'm doing it well, if I do it just so, maybe you'll be just at least a little entertained. Because either way, those are my objectives, and some of the news is actually paranormal. Some of it's just weird. Some of it's just interesting. And so without further ado, let's dive into some of this and see where we end up. All right. The first article up for bat tonight is from unexplained-mysteries.com. Phenomenal site. Please check them out. I know I say that every show, but there's a lot of sites that I love, but there's some that are just exceptional. And this is one of those sites. Unexplained-mysteries.com is an exceptional site. Everything that I find on there is days ahead of most, not everything, but most things that I find on there are days ahead of other sites. And, case in point, there was an article that was covered on another show, and the person said, yeah, it just came out yesterday. You should talk about it. And I was like, Yeah, we talked about that a couple days ago on my show. And in fact, it came out in this date and they were like, whoa. And so that's unexplained-mysteries.com. So, but the first article up for bat tonight on the unexplained-mysteries.com train of fun is coming from England. And apparently there's a two-legged fox hanging out in England. I just want to turn off this because we don't need that. It says fox with only two legs is filmed on lawn in England. With only two legs. Wow. Nature will find a way. You gotta love that. Something about nature is even when the odds are so against something making it. I mean, it just, what is it from Jurassic Park? Jeff Goldblum, life finds a way. And this is a great example of the incredible adaptability of something with a will to live. The bizarre footage, which is filmed recently in Derbyshire, is as intriguing as it is heartbreaking. Clear my throat, sorry. For Phil and Jane Carter, who live in a small town of Ikeston, Derbyshire, spotting a fox rummaging around for food in their garden is nothing particularly unusual. When they looked out one day back in December, however, there was something distinctly different about the fox that had decided to pay them a visit. It was missing two of its legs. The two-legged animal seemed none the worse for wear as it wandered across the grass, sniffing the ground while balancing precariously on its two remaining limbs. My wife shouted, "Quick, grab your phone. We've got a two-legged fox on the lawn," Phil recalled. We only had about 5 minutes of it going around the lawn, smelling and picking up some meat, and then off it went like a rocket. The sighting was particularly unusual because it seemed as though the fox had managed to adapt to living on two legs and appeared just as healthy as any other member of its species. We've never seen anything like this in the wild before, but the animal looks relatively healthy and appears to have adapted to life on two legs, a Derbyshire Wildlife Trust spokesman told the BBC. The video, however, is unavailable, so it's been disabled. Playback on other websites has been disabled by the video owner, so I don't know if they're going to try to work it for some cash or something, so I'm not going to fish for that video, but that's very interesting. There's a two-legged fox. I would like to see it. I haven't seen the video, but I'm just thrilled that if it was dealt such a hand, that is doing fine, That, to me, is just an amazing development in that story. But very cool. First article, first bit of information. Fox can survive on two legs. I wonder if that's the first bipedal fox then. Maybe. All right, that's the first one. Let's get to the next article here on the Paranormal Portal Fun Fest. The news, that is the Fun Fest. At least it's fun for me. I hope it's fun for you guys. I think most of the feedback I get is good. But the next one up is, hold on, Froggy. From unexplained-mysteries.com, has the face of Jack the Ripper finally been revealed? Oof, is that it? Is that the face? It says the face of a serial killer? ? Looks pretty angry, or at least maybe not angry, but just devoid. If that is the expression, that's pretty unnerving. It says the only known facial composite of the infamous serial killer was etched into the handle of a walking stick. It is one of the best known and enduring murder mysteries of the world has ever known. Yet more than 120 years later, after Jack the Ripper's killing spree through the streets of London, there has never been a definitive answer as to who he really was. Now, though, an intriguing clue has resurfaced in the form of a facial composite image of the culprit etched into the handle of a walking stick owned by Scotland Yard detective Frederick Aberline, who has spent several years of his life attempting to track him down. The walking stick itself has been kept at a police college in Hampshire, for years and was later presumed lost, but now in an unexpected twist, it was recently rediscovered by staff who'd been searching through the archives at the college of policing's headquarters in Brighton. Finding this cane was an exciting moment for us, said college content creator Anthony Cash. Jack the Ripper is one of the biggest and most infamous murder cases in our history, and his crimes were significant in paving the way for modern policing and forensics, as it caused police to begin experimenting with and developing new techniques as they attempted to try and solve these murders, such as crime scene preservation, profiling, and photography. This walking cane is such a fascinating artifact which represents such a historically significant time in policing. Whether the composite will actually help solve the case, however, remains to be seen. Well, they didn't really say. How do they know this is the actual visage of him, or was it just some artist's rendering? How do they believe that this is what the person actually looked like? Did somebody see him and they were able to sketch it out and then later carve it into a handle? There's a lot of unknowns in the story. But again, it's just a snippet of news. So perhaps if any of you find out more information about this walking stick, you can let me know, because I'm curious why they believe this is an actual rendering of what he looked like. Where's the source that this carving was done by? But maybe time will tell. In any case, who knows? Next up on the news, next story is coming from unexplained-mysteries.com. This one's kind of interesting, and I don't know. It's not extraordinarily long, which is good, because it fits the profile for the news, but it's kind of an interesting take because, again, when it comes to history, our scientists, at least archaeologists, believe they have a lock on the way things were done. This is the way they were done. This is how they were done. This is why they were done. And now maybe there's a new twist in one of those mysteries of the past. And that is, have we been wrong about mummification all along? Well, I haven't read this before, so I might be surmising this terribly, but hopefully I'm right. All right, and that's an unusual mummy. Wow. Some experts now believe that Egyptian mummification may have had nothing to do with preserving the bodies. For the longest time, archaeologists had subscribed to the idea that the ancient Egyptians mummified the bodies of the deceased as a way to preserve them, but now a new theory has been gaining traction which suggests that preservation was merely a side effect of this process and that the real reason Egyptians mummified their dead was something else entirely. This revised theory puts forward the idea that Egyptians had seen their kings and queens as living gods and that turning them into statues via mummification after death would restore them. The incredible golden masks found on some mummies would have been intended as idealized depictions of their godlike selves, not portraits of the deceased, as is commonly believed. It's a subtle distinction, but it's an important one, said museum curator Campbell Price. The idea that the spirit returns to the body or in some sense animates the body is not as explicitly articulated as you might imagine. The original idea that mummification was a preservation technique, it has been argued, may have originated with early Egyptologists based on a misunderstanding of the evidence. That said, not everyone is convinced that this revised theory is accurate. The physical preservation of the body was extremely important, said archaeologist Stephen Buckley from the University of York. There's no question of that. Well, obviously it was important, but what was the purpose? I don't think he's answering that. But isn't that wild? I mean, geez, that's a thousands of year old body. Huh. Well, there you have it. Who knows? I guess the ancient Egyptians know, but they're apparently not telling us. Good thing these people get paid to sit around and think of this stuff, though. Does it matter? No, it really probably doesn't matter what their purpose was, but they did it anyway, whatever their reason was, and because of the preservation, we're able to study those things and glean a bit of the past that otherwise would have been lost to us. So, either way, potato, potato. All right, now, if any of you out there are furries or you participate in the sport of being a furry, which for those of you that are the uninitiated, means like you act like an animal, usually a dog or a bear or a cat, something. And it's this, I don't know if it's a fetish as much as it's an alternative lifestyle, but it's called furries. However, you might be able to step up your game if you just get involved with this. And this is from unexplained-mysteries.com. Japanese firm makes ultra-realistic dog costumes for clients. Jeez. Somebody's going to buy this and hoax some Dogman stuff or something. Ever wanted to be a dog? Japanese company Zeppet Workshop will turn you into one for the right price. Taking the idea of role-playing one step further than anyone thought possible, the company, which specializes in special effects and modeling, hit the headlines back in 2022 when it was revealed that it had created an ultra-realistic collie costume for a customer who wanted to become a dog. What? Why would you want to become a dog? Footage of the client wearing the costume seen below, which reportedly cost around $15,000, quickly went viral. More recently, Zappet was tasked with creating something even more challenging, a wolf costume. Because of my love for animals since childhood and some realistic animal suits appearing on TV, I dreamed of being one someday, the client was quoted as saying. I've to each their own, but what the hell? At the final fitting, I was amazed at my transformed self in the mirror. It was a moment when my dream come true. The resulting outfit, which cost a whopping $23,000, was even more convincing than the last one, demonstrating, if nothing else, just how skilled the firm's employees are at making costumes. The process took around 50 days and involved carefully examining images of real wolves to get all the details right. The other costume designs built by Zeppet over the years include a bear, a panda, and various mascots. Well, why not? Let's have a look. I don't know why. Let's just look anyway, because I'm going to kill the sound. Look at that. What person thinks, I'd like that? Okay. Can I turn off the closed captions? Because I don't really care what his reasoning is. Look at that. That's sweet. I don't know what to say to that, folks. That's just mild. Don't do that. Don't do that. What are you doing? Okay, well, folks, it's an option for anybody that has a couple tens of thousands of dollars they don't need. You too could lumber into your backyard and probably raise a leg at a tree at will. I don't know. What is this doing? Why? You could feed homeless people or something. You could do something that changed people's lives, and instead you want to be a dog. Okay, well, I've seen enough of this. I don't know if you guys want to see more. You're welcome to go look it up yourself, but the article is Japanese firm makes ultra-realistic dog costumes for clients. I don't know. Did you poop in my yard? No, that was my dog. What dog? My dog. Oh, my God. I don't know what's going on here. I don't think I want to know anymore. That's enough of that. I'm mildly disturbed now. All right, let's get to the next one, and this one is dealing with a mystery at sea. It's been going on for 150 years, and apparently still a mystery. Whatever happened here. This is a story I'm not familiar with personally, but it says, I believe I've heard of it before somewhere, but I don't remember the specifics. And this is the mystery of the Mary Celeste still endures 150 years on. Nobody knows what became of the crew of the infamous ghost ship, which was found adrift and deserted in 1872. Discovered in the waters off the Azores in the Atlantic Ocean on December 4th of that year, the Mary Celeste, a merchant brigantine, was the focus of a mystery that still remains unsolved to this day. The vessel was found adrift and abandoned under partial sail, with one of its lifeboats missing. Betcha that's where you might find the crew. There was absolutely no sign of any of the crew, and no indication of what might have happened to prompt them to abandon a ship that was at the time of its discovery still perfectly seaworthy. Entries found in the ship's log indicated that it had left New York City for Genoa on November 7th and was the last log entry, being 10 days before the ship was found. There had been a plentiful supply of food and provisions on board, and even the cargo was intact. At the time, the fate of the crew of the Mary Celeste became a major point of contention, with theories put forward to explain their disappearance ranging from alcohol fumes to an attack by a giant squid. After the ship was recovered, it ended up being put back into service and continued to serve under a new owner until it was deliberately wrecked off of Haiti in 1885 as part of an insurance scam. There you go. Even today, 150 years on from the disappearance of its original crew, no answers have been forthcoming and no trace of anyone who had been on board was ever found. Whether or not they reached wherever it was they had fled to remains a complete mystery. Wow. Well, I don't know. That's curious. So there you go. I guess it's still a mystery. Nobody still knows. I'm not surprised at that, but it's in the news. And at that case, why not? Well, let's go to the next article, and this is from unexplained-mysteries.com. And this has to do with some UFO activity over at Las Vegas. I was going to say LA, but it's LV. All right, and this comes from January 2nd, which is just yesterday. And it's red and white lights in the sky over Las Vegas spark UFO reports. And there is a still image of those lights. And that is, I don't know, it's pretty peculiar. Now you think, well, it's Las Vegas. They're always shining lights up in the sky and stuff. But you'll see from the video that these do seem a little odd. It says dozens of witnesses who took to social media to post photographs and video clips of the unusual aerial phenomena. While it is certainly not unusual to see lights in the sky over Las Vegas, the phenomena in the night sky over the Sin City last month was seemingly something a little more unusual. Consisting of red and white glowing lights shining through the clouds, the spectacle was enough to unnerve a lot of people on the ground, and the mystery was soon all over social media. Suffice to say, the sightings were unlikely to be the result of extraterrestrial visitation, but perhaps more intriguingly, they weren't necessarily down to any sort of conventional aircraft either. What does that leave then? According to the National Weather Service, the most probable culprit, was a type of fascinating atmospheric phenomenon known as light pillars. Light pillars, sure. They happen all the time. Long pillars of multicolored light streaking through the sky seem like the perfect backdrop for an impending alien invasion, but in reality, light pillars are a common effect that can be found all over the world. The agency wrote on its website, they do come from above, not extraterrestrials, but tiny crystals of ice hanging in the atmosphere. Ice is very thin, shaped like plates or hexagonal faces. When the ice drifts down through the air, it falls close to horizontally. At the top and bottom are the faces with more area. Ice is very reflective, so when light hits those wider faces, it bounces around and reflects off more ice crystals. Well, here's apparently a TikTok of it or something. Oh, what the hell did I do? I guess we'll watch it here. If it starts.
What's happening? There's UFO directly above.
There we go. Yeah, enough of the guy yapping. They're going to show the footage of what they saw. This is from TikTok. Hothead Brett. Hothead Brett on TikTok filmed this and shared it out to the world. And you can see there's the light pillars apparently. It's interesting. There's a green one, a red one, two orange ones, and what looks like a white one there. Now, I was thinking spotlights or whatever, but you can see the spotlights coming and going, and these are surprisingly stationary, so I don't know. Could it be light pillars? Maybe, but I don't know if I'm so convinced, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't pretend to know what it is. I don't pretend to know what it isn't, but it does seem unusual. Could it be light pillars? Well, I don't know. It's out of my pay grade, but it definitely is unusual. So we'll go with it. Who knows? Believe what you will. All right, let's go to the next one, which is a fantastic article dealing with the rarest mineral on Earth. The rarest mineral on Earth. Yep, you heard it right. Apparently, there's only one of them so far. And this is from unexplained-mysteries.com. The rarest mineral on Earth exists only in a single known gemstone. Well, there's been other rare minerals found in like meteorites and such, actually that don't come from the Earth and are not found anywhere on Earth. But at any rate, some minerals can be found almost anywhere, while others are so rare that there's only one known example. You might be forgiven the thinking that even the rarest and most valuable minerals on our planet can be tracked down given enough time and money, but there exists one mineral in particular that is so rare that's only ever been found once. Known as kyothite, it was discovered in the Magok region of Myanmar in the form of a single 1.61 carat orange gemstone. A natural bismuth antimonate. God, I don't believe I pronounced that right. Well, I think I did, unless I'm really brutalizing that, but it looks like an antimonate. With little else is actually known about it, making it one of the most enigmatic minerals on Earth, in addition to being the rarest. The second rarest mineral on Earth, meanwhile, is painite, a red hexagonal crystal that, although still exceedingly difficult to find, is at least a bit more readily available than kyothite, or thuit, or I don't know. The first two known samples were acquired in 1952 by gem collector and dealer Arthur Payne, after which the mineral was named, who initially believed them to be common rubies. Since then, mineralogist George Rossman has been maintaining a database of every sample found. To my knowledge, no one has done a serious study of what it takes to form painite. He told Live Science, "I know of no attempt to synthesize it in a lab." So this is what the rarest one looks like. And this is kyothite, and it's from Myanmar. So it's, I don't know, it's interesting. I don't know. It's not really a spectacularly brilliant stone, but it's kind of warm and unique, I guess. Well, there you go. Now you know. That's where it is. That's where it's from. And there's only one. So I guess that is, so far, the rarest. All right. Coming up next, this is the last story of the night. Now, I don't know. Many of you may be kind of into the whole Nostradamus prophecies and stuff. And I have to tell you, I'm not a real firm believer in it. I just think that his prophecies were written in such a way as they're extraordinarily interpretable in many cases. Some of them were very interesting, and that was with his premonition or his foretelling of what would become World War II, and with the hister instead of the real guy that we dealt with. But that was his interpretation of it, and that was surprisingly accurate. But I've heard of a lot of other ones. When I was in high school, I remember hearing that Atlantis was supposed to raise from the ocean because it was predicted to happen, people believed, in 1987. But as far as I know, it still hasn't come up. But maybe it will. Maybe it's just a typo. Anyway, Nostradamus predicted cannibalism and a celestial fire on Mars in 2023. Ooh. Well, so if you're slated to be one of the first people to go to Mars, you might want to rethink that if there's any departing this year. The world's most prolific seer had a few things to say about the events of the next 12 months. Michel de Nostradamus, who lived in 16th century France, was so well known for his predictions of the future that his name has become synonymous with the idea of prophesizing future events. He wrote a book, Les Prophéties. I'm reading that wrong on purpose. Les Prophéties. I don't know. French loaf. I don't know. Which is still analyzed and referenced even to this day. Exactly how his writings should be interpreted, however, remains up to the individual. with some arguing that he's correctly predicted many major events and others maintaining that his predictions are too vague to say for sure one way or the other. For 2023, Nostradamus made a few intriguing predictions, including the following. No abbots, monks, no novices to learn. Honey shall cost far more than candle wax. That might be actually very true. So high the price of wheat. That's not bad. The man is stirred, his fellow man to eat in his despair. Where the hell did the Mars thing come in? It's easy to imagine that this refers to the current cost of living crisis, and even seems to suggest that being unable to afford food, people will resort to cannibalism. Another prediction for 2023 is as follows. 7 months, Great War, people dead through evil. Roran Everu shall not fall to the king. Could this be a reference to the war in Ukraine or something else? Then again, perhaps it doesn't relate to any real-world events at all. To round out his predictions, Nostradamus also referenced an apparent disaster on Mars, or more specifically, a celestial fire when the lights of Mars will go out. Could this relate to a future mission to Mars? You decide. Well, there you go, and therein lies the problem. I mean, sure, you could relate this to current events. Some of it doesn't seem real far from what's going on, but others of it is like, well, I don't know. We'll just have to see how it all wraps up. I'm rather optimistic that 2023 will be a decent year, but let's hope he's wrong. So there you have it, folks. This has been a presentation of the Paranormal Portal News. Let's get back to the rest of the show. Hope you're ready. We're going back. All right, oops, wrong screen. Oops. Huh? That was wrong screen. Oh, geez, here it comes. Talk quietly amongst yourselves for a sec. Okay, I'm back. I think, at least for now. So that was the news. I hope you guys enjoy it. Dan, good name. What's Dan's name? What's going on? Dan Sheehan. Oh. Hey, Dan Sheehan, good to meet you. Okay, nice. It's always fun to see new names pop up. And I'm sorry if you're just a rename of an existing person, but it's great to see you. Hey, Ruger, good to see you. Missed you, brother. Glad you're back. Did I miss anything else? I'm just looking at chat now. All right. V Sunni IX is VI like 6 and IX 969. I see what you did there. Okay, nice to meet you though. Welcome. Thanks for checking out the show. I appreciate that, even if I don't understand your name. His daughter's name is Maggie. Well, that's got to be a good person then, right? I'm good, Dan. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And then thank you all for coming in. It's always a pleasure to look out there and see new friendly faces and smiling visages in my mind. You're all happily watching the Paranormal Portal. In my mind, you're all joyous. And I don't want to say frolicking. I was going to say frolicking. Brent, how about a tour of your studio? Sure. This is me. This is my microphone. In front of me, that you can't see because I don't have a mobile camera, is 3 monitors. Then I have a soundboard over here, keyboard, mouse, and my Stream Deck, which switches all the scenes, like when you see scenes switching. It's right here. Behind me is a monitor. Over there is the on-air sign. This is a sign that Taco made for us, Paranormal Portal, and I made a shadow box for it and put a light strip in there. And then all of these masks around here are actually pretty old, and except for that one. The alien one is like a Halloween prop. But there's more decorations and stuff, but there's not much more to see, honestly. It's just a conglomeration of stuff. I'm kind of an eclectic collector, and I've always liked Halloween, so hence the studio. And there's really not much. There's a desk, and Don sits over there. There's the chair. Maybe you could see it. Well, like if I go like this would be where Don would be sitting if he were here, which is just on the other side. Let me close the Skype thing. Yeah, this would be Don's chair, and the on-air sign behind him, the Bigfoot sign, the little rice lights. Yeah, this is as much of a tour as I can give you. I don't have a camera that can pan around, and honestly, you probably don't want to see what's in front of me because it's a mess. It's an absolute disaster. I mean, everything just all over the place because, honest to God, this is where I live. I tongue in cheek, of course. I mean, I have a home here and all of that, but this is in my home, and I spend 14 hours a day in here probably working on shows or answering messages or trying to put together podcasts or interviews or whatever. And so this is my world, and I have a small world. So I don't know. That's probably not what you're looking for, but that's as much of a tour as I can give you right now. So, but maybe someday I'll clean it up, and then I'll get another camera and make a video with my phone and put that on the channel here so you can see it and give you a better idea of what's going on. How's the new chair? New chair is brilliant. At this point, normally, I could get really graphic, but I'm going to go with the family-friendly version. But at this point in most shows, I'd be starting to squirm because I'd have like two butt cheeks that looked like pancakes that would be flat. And it was because sitting on that other chair was like sitting on a brick. And it was so uncomfortable. And the older I get, the more things aren't where they used to be. And that becomes a bigger problem. And I'm going to let you go with your imagination on that one. So, it's nice and cushy. And check this out. Whoa. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So, yeah, what looks different is you can actually see behind me now more, whereas the other chair had this, it was that gamer chair thing, and they had those high backs. The backrest on the gamer chair wasn't bad, but the butt rest was horrible. So pancake butt, totally, Luna. It was. I mean, I don't know. That's about as much information. Yeah, looking slick. Thank you, Nate. Yeah, that's again, it's really comfortable, and I'm not usually comfortable in here after a full day of 14 hours. This chair is rated 8 to 10 hours, so I'm hoping. I don't know what the other chair was rated, like 30 minutes. I don't know. Anyway, enough about my chair, but thank you so much for your inquiry about the studio. And actually, this mask right here was sent to me by Ruthie. Ruthie had this mask. She's got a collection of masks as well, and she sent me that. And if you ever want to send something to me, look at paranormalportal.net. At the bottom of the page, there's a P.O. box. I'd be happy to, if you want to send something to be included in the studio or something else, up to you. But there's a P.O. box on paranormalportal.net. And you can send anything, as long as it's not gross or, really, really inappropriate or illegal. Yeah. So, now we're going to move into a segment that I've been having a lot of fun with lately, and I hope you guys are too. And this is a way to tie in our Discord community with the rest of the live shows, and not so much the podcast. The podcast is still kind of its own thing. If you're not familiar with our podcast, we do have an audio only podcast that's on all the major platforms: iHeart, iTunes, Castbox, Google Play, Stitcher, Pandora, Spotify, and every other platform. And that's just an audio only show where I interview people usually, or sometimes we'll talk about phenomena. But generally speaking, it's been a really, really big success. I'm really thrilled with how the podcast is doing and the wonderful support I've gotten in the podcast communities. But this isn't the podcast. This is just our YouTube live streams. So It's a different animal for the most part. This is more like a variety show, unless I do have guests on here, which happen from time to time. But getting back to the Discord communication, this is the link. I'll put it in there in the YouTube chat. If anybody wants to join, you're more than welcome. We'd love to have new people join at all times. There's always fascinating discussions going on about all of the paranormal stuff we love, and you can be a part of it as well. So I will bring you over to that right now on this screen, but we're going to get to the Discord question of the week. I'll explain that in a minute for those of you that are brand new. And this is our Discord. And here is the bumper for Discord question of the week. Whoops, not that one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is our Discord question of the week, and this is the Discord channel. If and when you decide to join Discord, you'll be greeted with something probably like this. This is the general tab, which is what every new person will see when they first come in. And over here are the channels. For those of you that aren't familiar with Discord, I belong to a few other channels anyway. And so those are over here on the left. But all of this panel here going up and down is the Paranormal Portal Discord channel, and it has all these different topic areas that you can explore. We cover Bigfoot, Dogman, Ghost, UFO, extraterrestrial. What is it? Extraterrestrial what? I don't know. What's the dash? I forgot. Extraterrestrial encounters. Then there's cryptids. And there's even a music channel, because we got a lot of music enthusiasts in our ranks, and so they wanted a group to post songs and things that they found. So pretty cool. And then there's the strange phenomena here. So, and there's all kinds of things that are posted in all of these. So, video links people find, articles sometimes, just discussions other times, and responses to things that people post. So lots of great things going on there, but this is the questions of the week tab. And what the questions of the week are is something that I've started to tie this Discord community into the live stream shows and bring that together a little more, because in many ways the Discord is just like a continuation of the YouTube chat and experience in some regards. Obviously, I'm not there talking to you the whole time. I do go on there from time to time, and I pop in when I can. But Sheldon is on there as well, and Don is on there as well. So those are some ways to stay in touch with us if you choose. But the questions of the week are a question that I post before every live show. And it has to do with paranormal in some regard, either 40 and paranormal, UFOs, any of the topic areas that we discuss on the show, which is all of them. And it's just meant for you guys to weigh in with your thoughts on the phenomena, because I don't pretend to know. I mean, I have ideas. I have theories about all of this stuff, but I don't know. I could be absolutely right, wrong, or absolutely off course. And you guys many times have brought me to new revelations, just because you're bringing your viewpoint to it, and I can go, wow, sometimes it'll be just pow. Oh yeah, that makes sense because this, and this. So this is the Discord question of the week. So the question for tonight's show, question of the week, Wednesday's show, the missing 411 phenomena, spearheaded by David Paulides, discusses incredibly strange and unusual disappearances commonly, but not exclusively, in the national parks in the United States. Many thoughts have been expressed as to the reason these people are disappearing. What reason or reasons do you believe are causing these people to disappear? Now, the interesting thing about this was, there's been a lot of people that have been really into the 411 stuff, myself included. I think David Paulides has done an amazing job on this and bringing this to light. And the one thing we don't know, though, is what's going on. What is happening to these people? Are they being grabbed by something? Are they falling into some weird wormhole anomaly or dimensional anomaly? Are they falling into caverns that are just unmapped and nobody knows where to find them, and then they, maybe just expire? We don't know. And so I'm curious as to what you guys think, because I don't know what to think about it. I have just as many questions as I do possible answers. So I thought it'd be interesting to hear what you guys had to say. And so Paradox Fossils weighs in first, and he says, many are going through portals to a sister Earth realm and reappearing in other parts of time where they are needed. And that's an interesting take. I mean, my God, what if there was an intelligence behind all this? That's a profound thought. Last Light weighs in and says, the wilderness is vast. People could simply be getting lost. Good point, yeah. At the same time, though, articles of clothing neatly appearing in places after search teams have scouted an area is very strange. Yeah, it is. And what he's referring, or what Last Light is referring to there, is that sometimes they find people's shoes and socks, pants, shirts, nicely folded in a pile, just waiting. And sometimes these areas had already been searched. Sometimes when they're searching, they find them. But at any case, it's very curious. It's like we are not equipped in our normal way, in our normal skin suit to survive in the wilds of this world. We're just not. We need clothing. We need layers. We need protection. We need blockage from wind, rain, sun, temperatures, etc. And we need protection on our feet because our feet are soft and very prone to damage, especially in the wild areas. So how come people would forego the very thing that they need to survive? That is very curious. Morganonymous says, no idea, but it's terrifying. I've looked into it deeply for a few years. Maybe a couple of them may just be strange circumstances with everyday solutions, but there are definitely plenty that are truly bizarre. Not the slightest clue what's doing it, except that I believe the people are essentially moved into a different dimension, for lack of a better word. I wouldn't be at all surprised if what some call the Fae were involved. And that's a great point. I mean, the Fae were notorious in history as being tricksters, trying to lure people into their fairy realms and not letting them go. And so what if some of those legends were based on some truth? And it's my contention that every legend has a kernel of truth in it, at least. And so what if that was the case? What if this is a continuation of that same phenomena still happening? It's just in our modern age, we don't attribute it to little winged people flying around. But what if? That's a great take. Lilypond says, due to scent dogs and trackers not being able to detect anything coming or going from a point of the last known origin, it has to be either taking them from above, subterranean, or through a portal. All or any of one of the possibilities, of many possibilities. Until we have several survivors that have clear recall of their experience, it's anybody's guess. Yeah, and is it just, the other thing is it just one thing? I mean, is this a collection of weird disappearances? I'll get to my thoughts at the end, of course. Carol Motzinger says, I think portals, entities coming in and grabbing someone, then going back through. Yeah, I mean, that certainly would make sense, given as Lilypond suggested, that even tracking dogs sometimes can't or won't track. So something is occurring to those animals not to follow it, not to follow the scent. Like, I don't know if it's an intuition that animals have about it, or if it's some other level of knowledge or knowing that we can't figure out, or if they just can sense that it's danger and they don't want to be there. But those are great takes. Shepherdess says, watched the new documentary 3 times now. Still good each time. I think some of the disappearances are people genuinely getting lost. Even a lifetime hunter can get turned around in the woods he is familiar with. Yeah, good point. I can't pretend to know enough about search and rescue, and a person can't discount the UFO and Sasquatch encounters folks have. So I guess my answer is it's got to be a mixed bag of occurrences. Yeah, I think that's probably a safe bet too. Maggie says, I have no clue is my answer, although nature must never be underestimated. Cave systems aligning like that is intriguing to say the least, and in my humble opinion, most definitely warrants further serious investigation. Yeah, wouldn't it be something if they did go down and re-explore those caves after someone goes missing. I'll get to that as well. I hope I can remember all these points that I want to address, but there's a reason that I'm saying this. Within, I'm not certain. However, I read today that another severed foot with a shoe still on it was found at Yellowstone National Park this past week. Yeah, I don't know. Those things are just falling off of people. I think the last one was some guy fell into the geyser or something, and it's like, it's literally just nearly boiling hot. I mean, this is volcanic, maybe even acidic water, sulfuric water that's coming up. So yeah, it doesn't lend well to biological tissues, but the fact that a shoe and a foot in it floats up is just very disturbing. Shepherdess comes back with, for anyone interested, possibly boiled alive. Yeah, that's exactly what I was just talking about. Yeah. Oh, that's horrible. I don't imagine that feels good at all. And I don't think you probably could even fight your way out of it. That's the scary part. It's like, you fall into that and it's instantly beginning to cook you. So meaning that the muscles that you're going to rely on to try to get out are instantly becoming subdued, almost like a venom. Wonder Woman says some of the disappeared are from alien technology being used by unknown entity or entities to abduct citizens of select choice for hybrid experiments. Plausible? Yes. True? Time will tell. Evil lurks in many places. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be something if it was just basically, hey, you're the right genetic material, you're coming with us. Ugh. Android Paranormal comes in and says, I've not looked into this topic much. However, the one time I did, I happened to notice the states with the highest number of disappearances per capita were the coldest states, like Alaska. So most people are freezing to death in the deep in the woods. Although I don't doubt for a second that some disappear permanently in paranormal related reasons, like alien abductions or portals, except I think it's likely a small minority that disappear due to this paranormal reasons. That could be. Again, I don't pretend to know for sure, but I just know that the number of these cases is incredibly staggering. Now, the reason I think that the caves are worth an extra look is there was a YouTuber, a pretty big YouTuber that was doing, IRL streams. Basically, they just go and do things and they kind of vlog it. And you can find this on YouTube. It's very real and very true. But what was going on is they were in a park area with some pretty famous caverns. And so they the 4 or 5 of them went down and kind of went spelunking. I mean, it wasn't really truly spelunking, like they weren't using ropes and going over crevices and much, but they were getting into some areas that were really tricky. And they got way deep underground, and standing all by herself is like a 7-year-old girl that doesn't speak English. And she's confused, she's scared, she's crying, and she's standing there in the absolute darkness all by herself. How did she get there? And so they guided her back out and were able to get her to come with them and guided her back out and were able to find out that she was the child of some people that were visiting from another country. And she had just suddenly, boom, disappeared. But they reunited her. But she was suddenly deep underground in a deep cavern. And so I don't know how she got displaced, for sure. I never did hear that part of the story. But it just goes to show you that somehow that child ended up deep underground in an impossible place with no explanation. She was just suddenly there. And if it hadn't been for this crew of YouTubers that were just doing some exciting exploration, she may very well have perished under there, just being lost and alone and with no idea what to do. And who would have found her? So how did she get there? I don't know. But she got there. And now, did she fall down some secret shaft or something? Don't know. There's no specifics that I got that I've ever found on that since then. But that's a pretty hair-raising tale. So what if the same is happening to other people? What if What if perhaps it is some kind of space anomaly, and these people are just suddenly in an underground cavern in the pitch darkness, and they have no idea where to go, what to do, and no clue how to get help or to find help because they're just hopelessly underground. I mean, what a horrifying experience. Android says, there's some famous caverns in Virginia where I went to, and one of the stories the guides tell is when they discovered the caverns, they found skeletons of native Indian girl that had been something. I don't know. I guess he's still typing. Maybe went to read it too quick. But I think the caverns deserve a second look, and maybe they could start to discern. Maybe some more of these mysteries would be solved. Just how did the people get there? Who knows? Were they brought there? Is there something living subterranean that's dragging people down? Maybe. I don't know. There are certainly many reports of cryptids that allegedly live underground. So what if it is the Fae? What if it's some of their trickery? Who knows? Great points. I really appreciate everybody weighing in on this. These questions are absolutely fascinating and unnerving because we've covered stories on the show many times where people are on nature walks and they make they're well-known nature walks, places they go repeatedly, and suddenly they find themselves in a totally unfamiliar place, even unfamiliar surroundings, unfamiliar vegetation. I've heard stories of people finding themselves from a deep forest in a plain on top of a mountain, or from a deep forest or from a plain into a jungle, or from a day into night, or any weird transitions. And one of the threads, now I can't verify these stories are true, but they're reported as true. So what they do though is they just kind of stop and they backtrack, and then they're back in their own surroundings. They don't notice like a transition. It's just like suddenly, boom, they're back where they were supposed to be. So is there naturally occurring portals or other anomalies like that just are part of the natural biorhythm of our reality? And maybe there are. Maybe that accounts for some of it. Again, could be extraterrestrial. That certainly would stand to reason in some of them, because one case that I remember David Politis did is a guy who was missing from a urban area. He just literally walked out of a club and was gone, and nobody could find him. And they did a search and searched an area several times. Maybe hundreds of people searched this area, and there was like a pond in the middle of it. They've been through there many times. And then a few days later or a week later or something, they found his body floating in the pond. Absolutely no trauma whatsoever, just floating in this pond area. It's not a real deep pond, and was just there. I might be badly paraphrasing this story, but the point is that I think he was wearing his socks. Like his shoes were gone, but he's wearing socks, and his socks didn't show like they were soiled or anything. They were like brand new. So really weird stuff. The missing 411 stuff, if you're not familiar with it, go find David Politis' YouTube channel. Listen to his interviews. He's been on Coast to Coast several times, several other shows several times, does his own shows on YouTube. And it's fascinating stuff. And it's also terrifying and makes you really question whether or not you want to go out to the woods. I mean, really, because you just don't know. Rachel says, I was in the woods. I felt like I passed through a curtain. I tested it a couple times. It was just off the highway during a blue cherry and mushroom foraging trip. Wow. Yeah, I mean, what if that was one of those gateways? Very strange. So I've had that too, Rachie. Yeah. So believe what you will, but most of all, thank you to those of you who weighed in on this. And again, these questions will be posted every time before we do a live show. I'll post a new question of the week. Unless we have a guest on, then of course we won't. But yeah, so there'll be one up for Friday, probably tomorrow, but maybe later tonight if I can think of one. If any of you out there have ideas of questions of the week that you'd like asked, please send them to me either via Facebook Instant Messenger or through the Discord. You can direct message me anytime you want. I'll show you how you do that. Like if you see my name there, I think you can right click. No, I guess not. Like let's say if I was going to message Last Light, I can right here, and what can I do? Yeah, I can click message here, and it messages that person directly, so it will appear up here, and you can send them to me that way. So just right click on my name and click message and send it to me that way in Discord. I'll see it. Otherwise, you can email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. So there's ways to do it, but that has been the Discord question of the week. All right, I got to do this quick. Boom. All right, now I got to do this. Okay. So I like these. I like the questions of the week a lot. Again, because of that very reason. You guys weigh in. You tell me what you think. And all of your takes are right. And the beauty of the paranormal is there's no wrong answers. Like, you can't tell me something that you believe, and I can't say, oh, you're full of it. You're absolutely wrong. Because I don't know what the correct answer is. Nobody does. There's no experts in any of this stuff. There's just interested parties, I guess. And no cake. A party with no cake. I got all the cake you need right here. All right. All right, so let's see. What are we going to get to now? I got to think what I want to do here. I got several things pulled up. Lots of stuff we can get to. Now, actually, I want to get to this one because this is many times throughout the history of the show, I've featured articles by various authors, and sometimes, mostly lately, we've been doing a lot of Reddit scrape articles. But one of my favorite paranormal authors and journalists is a gentleman by the name of Brent Swancer. And he's just a great guy, and I've just always been a fan of his work long before I ever met him. I've met him through Facebook now for a long time. And he's just a fantastic guy. And he has a group on Facebook called Dark League Paranormal. And if you're looking for a cool group dealing with the paranormal stuff, you can certainly check that out. He's a great guy. But I've always loved his articles because it's just incredibly comprehensive. And the article that he wrote recently, actually it's from his archive, so it's actually an older article. But it's from February 7th of 2019, and this article can be found on mysteriousuniverse.org. And Mysterious Universe is another podcast, an excellent podcast. So definitely support them, support their site at mysteriousuniverse.org, and definitely support Brent Swancer's articles. And there's many brilliant writers over there at Mysterious Universe. So if you go there, you're going to love reading the stories because there's literally thousands of them over there too. But this article I thought was really interesting because it kind of deals with tulpas. And if you're not familiar with tulpas, what they are is it's based on a Buddhist concept, and the word tulpa I think comes from Buddhism, but it's the idea that people through whatever means are able to manifest beings or characters or creatures, and perhaps even some of the hauntings that people experience could be some form of tulpa, much like what a poltergeist is, which is kind of the same thing in many regards. It's believed to be a projection from a living person. And so that's not very different from the tulpa phenomena. Now, poltergeists are usually very unconscious. People don't realize that they're generating them. And they're usually very terrified by the experiences. But I thought this article was very interesting because it's an article that deals with bizarre cases of fictional characters who stepped out off the page into reality. And I was like, oh, wow, this is very interesting. I'd never read this one before. Still froggy. Ribbit. Oh, Hoyabachu Forest. Yeah, that's a very interesting forest. I'd like to check that out. That's over in Europe, I think, yeah? Like Romania or something. Yeah, that would be really cool. So yeah, I thought this would be a lot of fun to read. And it says, The world of fiction takes us beyond the horizons to the places of our wildest dreams. Reading or watching these works, we can escape our lives and go on spectacular adventures within the pages of our favorite books or the images of our favorite movies or TV shows. The only limit being our own imagination. But what if it's not just us journeying into these pieces of fiction and their myriad of wondrous worlds? What if the denizens of these fictional worlds sometimes take journeys to ours? There have been a surprising number of reports that suggest just that and point to the bizarre possibility that these constructs do not end at the page or on the screen, but that there is some deep strangeness at work. Here is the very weird world of people encountering literal fictional characters in real life. Some of the strange encounters with fictional characters in real life involve comic book characters that didn't seem to want to stay on the page. A very notable and widely discussed instance of this was allegedly experienced by the legendary comic writer Alan Moore, creator of Hellblazer series and its supernaturally powered main character, John Constantine. The character is very popular among Moore fans, but according to him, he had a very bizarre encounter with Constantine in the flesh of which he once said in an interview. One interesting anecdote that I should point out is that one day I was in Westminster in London. This was after we had introduced the character, and I was sitting in a sandwich bar, and all of a sudden, up the stairs comes John Constantine. He was wearing the trench coat, a shortcut. He didn't even look exactly like Sting. No, he didn't even look exactly like Sting. He looked exactly like John Constantine. He looked at me and stared straight into my eyes, smiled, nodded almost conspiratorially, and then just walked off around the corner to the other part of the snack bar. Well, I sat there and thought, should I go around that corner and see if he's really there? Or should I just eat my sandwich and leave? Well, I opted for the latter, and I thought it was the safest. I'm not making any claims to anything. I'm just saying that it happened. It's a strange little story. And there's Mr. Moore right there. Now, could it be that through the act of writing an article or writing a story, creating a character, that there is maybe the fundamentals of creating some form of tulpa or an energetic representation? Now, the weird part is, does that representation then go on to exist in a reality of its own? Is it a part of our world in some way, or is it a part of its own world then? Because when you read books, if you're an avid reader, there are some authors that breathe life into every moment that you read. And it's a fantastic phenomena for me personally. Like, the world disappears. And I'm not reading words. I'm experiencing in my head this journey, and it's an incredibly magical thing that I don't know if movies will ever be able to duplicate. But is the art of actually doing a character and a story, and then perhaps being reinforced by an unknown number of people also reading and expressing an energy for that, does that give it a reality? And maybe it does. Maybe that's a really big part of how these phenomena happen, but I think it's extraordinarily fascinating. So yes, Mr. Moore, very strange. It is unclear just how serious Moore was being, or if he was just musing and being eccentric, but it is certainly not the only comic character who has apparently walked right through the frames and into real life, often to torment their own creators. In the 70s, comic writer Doug Moench, Moench, was hard at work on a Planet of the Apes comic book, and this particular story revolved a villainous ape named Brutus, who wears a sinister black hood. One evening, he was just finishing a scene in which Brutus grabs the wife of one of the other characters and holds a gun to her head when his concentration was shattered by a muffled scream coming from his own wife across the house in the living room. The concerned Mensch then reportedly rapidly made his way to the living room to find a black hooded figure with his wife in a chokehold and a gun to her head. And he would say of the surreal experience, "It was exactly what I had just written. It was so immediate in relation to the writing and such an exact duplicate of what I had written that it became an instant altered state. The air in the room congealed, became almost like fog, and yet paradoxically, I could see with greater clarity. I could see the individual threads of his black hood. It really does make you wonder, are you seeing the future? Are you creating a reality? Should you give up writing forever after something like that happens? I don't know." The experience was so traumatic and bizarre for him that Mensch suffered extreme writer's block for many years and was constantly plagued by the idea that what he wrote might actually come true for reasons he could not fathom, that he was somehow cursed with this. There is also the odd tale of comic artist Dave McKean, who also worked Alan Moore's Hellblazer series and also on Neil Gaiman's Sandman series of comics as well. McKean once related an experience he had while on his way to the Comic-Con in San Diego, where when a girl that looked exactly just like Sandman character Death walked off a plane and went past him after someone had apparently died on the plane as they were waiting to take off. She apparently looked exactly like in the comics and vanished into thin air. Wow. I guess that's Lady Death. Huh. Or Death. Besides comic book characters, other literary characters have purportedly sprung into physical reality as well. One interesting case occurred in the 1960s when a well-known paranormal researcher at the time by the name of Hans Holzer was looking into a series of hauntings in and around the building of 12 Gay Street in New York City, which involved an apparition most commonly described as a total gentleman dressed in black formal clothing, sorry, I couldn't see the F, and with a top hat and black cape and cane, and which he called the Gay Street Ghost. This phantom was said to walk about the darkened premises and surrounding areas at night, startling people only to disappear. Holzer would go on to publish the case in his 1966 paranormal book, Yankee Ghosts, and this is where things get rather bizarre indeed. According to a prolific author named Walter B. Gibson, he had lived in that very same building not long before Holzer began his investigation. Gibson claimed that he had been living there along with writer Ed Burkholder in order to do some research for an installment of his popular series of novels starring a Batman-like crime fighter called The Shadow, whose alias is a character named Lamont Cranston. So absorbed was he in writing and in envisioning the Shadow roaming about the streets and the premises that he would often even hallucinate his character, who just happened to wield a cane and wear a formal evening clothes, a cape, and a top hat. This author likely would have attributed this to pure tiredness and sheer obsession with his character if he had not happened to read Holzer's book. He was immediately taken aback by the similarities between the ghost and his character, as well as the fact that the sightings were taking place in the exact same place he had lived while writing his novel at around the same time, and he became convinced that what he had seen was an actual projection of his character from his mind that had somehow been transferred into reality. He would say of this, "I remember talking with Ed Burkholder. He and I had an apartment together down in the village for a couple of years. That's the apartment that's supposed to be haunted now, 12 Gay Street. Hans Holzer said it's haunted, It's haunted, and people see a man in the evening clothes moving in and out, but that was where I wrote The Last Shadow. And what they're seeing is Lamont Cranston. They're seeing what we call an afterimage, psychic projection, not a ghost." That is interesting. Yeah, and there you go. There it is, The Shadow. Dead man's chest. Oof. Is that what this was? Some projection from the author's mind, somehow imprinting itself upon reality? We'll get back to this, but for now, let's look at a perhaps even more bizarre and rather surreal experience of a fictional character in the form of a beloved figure of the children's TV program Sesame Street. Yes, you read that right. The rather outlandish account was reported on Phantoms and Monsters. This is Lon's site, of course. This time by a witness who had just about the strangest thing you could imagine come out of his closet when he was a boy in around the year 1980. The witness, who claims he is now a paranormal researcher, says that when he was very young, he had been trying to get to sleep in the room he shared with his brother. And again, this was a room with a big walk-in closet. As he was lying there, the closet door began to open by itself. And the witness claims, "One night as I was trying to get to sleep, my brother was already asleep. The door opened, and I know this sounds crazy, but out came Big Bird." Of the children's show Sesame Street. "I remember being frightened at first, but others came out too, and they were very friendly and led me into the closet with them. All I remember at this point is that Big Bird gave me a flavored chapstick, most likely to ease my fear because I love chapstick, and they brought me back to my bed. I went to sleep very happy over the whole experience and was not afraid anymore. I put the chapstick under my pillow after taking a tiny nibble, leaving my teeth marks just to see if it was still there in the morning. The next morning I checked, and lo and behold, the chapstick was there, just like I remembered. And at that moment, I knew for a fact that this was not a dream. If it were not for that chapstick, the experience probably would have not stayed with me all of these years. I tried to tell my brother, but he laughed it off, as anyone would. It sounds totally crazy. Now, after reading the other accounts of similar experiences, I'm wondering if it was an abduction disguised as a friendly interaction." Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. What in the world? Big Bird. The witness gives an interesting observation in that he believes it might have been an alien abduction, with the entities taking the form that would seem non-threatening to a child. This is a feature of some abduction cases, with the beings allegedly able to either shapeshift or manipulate perceptions in order to take the form of whatever will best serve their purposes in the eyes of the abductee. Is that what is going on here? How else could we explain an actual character from a children's show emerging from a darkened closet? It could have been just the imagination of a child, but the fact that the witness remembers it so vividly all these years later is notable. Indeed, this has been one theory postulated on how people can be seeing these fictional characters come to life, that they are some sort of shape-shifting extraterrestrials, or perhaps even more likely, an interdimensional presence that takes the forms of whatever the witness is expecting or hoping to see at the time. Such an explanation has been used to try and make sense of everything from ghosts to Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, and it all seems rather far out, but is there a possibility that something else entirely different could be going on? One increasingly talked about possible explanations for this phenomena, as we have looked here, is that they are some sort of mental projection appearing in reality, an entity commonly called a tulpa, or thought form. The concept originally comes from Tibetan Buddhism and basically involves a visible construct built entirely from the mind and belief of human beings, basically willed into being. With enough will and belief, they are even said to be able to take on a life of their own, becoming sort of an independent apparition that can exist apart from its creators and can be seen and even interact with the world around them. The idea that a character from someone's mind can be brought to life in the real world has been such a pervasive concept that there was even a rather famous experiment designed to see if this was possible, called the Philip experiment. It was carried out in September of 1972 by the Toronto Society for the Psychical Research with the help of poltergeist expert Dr. A.R.G. Owen, and it sought to bring a man-made character to life and bring it into the real world, essentially to create a tulpa. In order to do this, 8 individuals from various backgrounds were gathered to participate. After which they went about creating a fictional character from scratch that would be named Philip Aylesford, envisioned as a Catholic nobleman from the 1600s. Every detail of Philip's life was planned out, including his hobbies, what foods he liked, his family life, and even how he died. And there were numerous drawings made of what Philip looked like. Philip wasn't just some nondescript nobody either, as he had to stand out as unique, colorful, and memorable. To that effect, his history was rather meticulously plotted out and rather interesting, to say the least, with some quite bizarre details. The most far-out bonkers of these was the time Philip fell in love with a gypsy woman named Margot and invited her to live in his estate despite being very married and living there with his wife. As one would expect with such an arrangement, Philip's wife found out about their affair and took it far from well. In fact, she had Margot tried and executed for witchcraft, during which time Philip said nothing in her defense. He would then become so downtrodden and despondent because of his betrayal that he would take his own life by jumping from a high window. The end is a pretty dark little tale for an experimental fictional character, but it made him stand out. Oh, this is a long article, isn't it? Sorry. The group concentrated on talking about and thinking about Philip as a real-life person who had actually existed, and they spent hours meditating on him. When this failed to produce any perceptible results or perceivable results towards bringing him into existence, they tried new avenues, such as arranging a series of actual seances, because, after all, since they all thought of him as long dead, perhaps Philip's tulpa had been generated as a ghost. To this end, they all set up a seance complete with candles and even items that were thought of as his actual personal possessions. The end result was that they claimed that Philip communicated with them from beyond the grave, answering questions through anomalous bangs and raps on the table. Don't know if that's probably the best criteria, but through these questions, the entity said that it was Philip, and was able to provide incredibly detailed knowledge of his fake history, and even provided details that they hadn't even written out about for him. The presence would also allegedly cause the lights to dim and flicker, and even to make objects move with unseen hands, and these seances became big news at the time, witnessed by many and even filmed. It's hard to say just what was going on with the Philip experiment, or just what it was that they conjured up. It could have been a sham, or a tulpa, or some other spirit or demon that used Philip's identity. In the end, it doesn't prove that tulpas can be willed into existence, but it is a rather curious experiment nonetheless, and makes one wonder if they had actually managed to create a character and bring him into the world. The idea of tulpas is causing fictional characters to spring to life is not so odd if they actually exist as it advertised. After all, authors spend a good portion of their lives thinking about and envisioning these characters in their minds, living with them in a sense, and basically giving them a life on paper. Indeed, it's not at all uncommon for an author's character to develop its own personality or persona and begin to do or say things in the story that the writer had never even originally intended. It is a weird feeling to see these characters to begin to exist on their own within the mind and spring to life. So has this extended to, or actually going beyond the mind to somehow launch themselves into reality based on the sheer concentration and will of the writer attributes them with? Oh, this is really... Okay, we're almost there. Such tulpas could even be hypothetically created from the minds of readers, such as the case of a rather odd account from the site Stranger Dimensions, with a witness who claims that he saw a character from his wife's book, which he had been proofreading for her. The witness said that his wife is a published author and that she would often have him read through her manuscripts before putting them out into the world. He had done this many times without incident, but during one such reading, he says he had a very strange experience, which he suspects was a tulpa. He says of this, "I started reading the book about the third week of September. When I read any book, I create a picture in my mind of what a character looks like, and I did this with an adult character by the name of Marie, Maree, Marie, who is mentioned quite often throughout the book. So I'm a slow reader, and it takes quite a while to get through any book I read. And sometimes I have to reread something I just read because my attention may have drifted from the book to something else. So I take my time and read carefully. My wife started to fuss a bit, asking if I didn't like her story. I honestly was enjoying the book and kept telling her that it just takes me longer than the average reader to finish a book. So Saturday evening, September 28th, I'm home alone washing some dishes in the sink. The sun is setting and it's still light out. I hear a banging sound coming from the backyard, and I recognize the sound as being the shed door. I walk into the living room to look out a window and see who's out there. There I see this woman standing there, just swinging the shed door to the closed position and reopening it again consistently, making the banging sound. The shed sits about 40 yards directly behind the house/window that I'm looking out. Dark hair, baggy off-white gown, looking as if the neighbor's yard just looking as if into the neighbor's yard, just slamming the door. My first thought is, why is this woman in my yard, and why is she doing that? I push off the window and head to the backyard. The noise stops before I get to the door that leads to the back porch. I didn't look up towards the shed until I was out on the porch, out of the porch on the patio, and she's not there. My shed door is open. I figured she's now in the shed or behind it. I first walk around the shed before opening the door wide enough to look in. Nothing. She's gone, quicker than anyone could physically remove themselves from sight. Without climbing fences and such, it wasn't until later that night that I make the connection. The woman in my yard very much matched the description of the character in my wife's book that I was currently reading. The hair, the outfit, as I pictured it. Granted, this person was about 40 yards from my window when I was watching her. I started to do some digging online and came across the tulpa. Could my wife's anger with me for reading her book too slowly have created some sort of thought form? He's blaming his wife. If that is even possible, what purpose would it serve except to confuse? And if this was some random person who wandered into my yard, why the odd behavior? Could these tulpas, these thought forms, be behind the bizarre phenomena we have looked at here? Or is it really possible for a figment of the imagination to be infused with life and reality of its own in the physical world? Or are these just misunderstandings and hallucinations, the mere workings of overactive imaginations seeing mere phantoms? In every case, we are left with a question such as these, and with our current knowledge, this is impossible to know at this point. However, it is interesting to think that the next time you're working on your novel, or even reading one, that character may just show up right in front of your eyes, leaping from the world of the imagination into the world of the real. Excellent article. Very long, though. It gets to be a long form to cover on the shows, but I love the effort that he puts into every one of his articles. Brent Swanser is really, sincerely, just the best as far as compiling and creating stories. In one instance, I covered these stories on my show, or a story. And I researched the hell out of it. I looked everywhere I could. And it had to do with a little UFO incident. And by little UFO, I mean literally a little UFO. And it was out of Malaysia. And basically, these kids were out playing near the edge of the forest. And they saw this little UFO come down. And it was literally, a little UFO. And they said they saw it come down and land. And it landed on like a tripod or some legs projected down. And out came these small figures. And they seemed to be climbing up a nearby tree and hanging up some kind of equipment or something. They just weren't sure. But the kids were watching them, and then one of them decides that he wants to go over and pick up one of these aliens. And so he does. He picks up this little alien, and this little alien whips out his gun and starts shooting the kid in the arm. And it didn't really hurt the kid, but I guess it did hurt him a little because it raised these little welts on his arm. Like he was getting shot by this little zapper, And it was actually like raising these bee sting welts on his arm. So he cried and let go, and they went screaming and ran away. I'm like, my God, that's very interesting. You don't hear these kind of stories very often. So I was like, well, it seemed very unprecedented to me. So I set on a binge looking in the World Wide Web for more of any kind of stories like that, because I'd never heard of stories of these little miniature UFOs and miniature occupants. So I thought that was very interesting. So I looked and looked and looked, couldn't find anything. So I was like, well, maybe that was just one of those one-offs. Well, I stumbled on an article by Brent Swanser years later and covered it on the show. He had covered that story and found about 5 or 6 more accounts from the Malaysia area of people seeing these small UFOs. It was like a whole rash of sightings. And now maybe it speaks to me as a researcher that I just suck. But I was just really thrilled that he was able to find so much more than I could about that phenomena. And so it was just a series of sightings. And since then, I've not heard much more. But apparently there are little UFOs too. They're not all these enormous craft. Maybe they can shrink themselves down. I don't know. But he said it looked like little people. He picked up the little people and thought like an action figure. Apparently the little aliens didn't like that much and told him so. I think many UFOs are drones that the aliens are sending for surveillance. Yeah, except this one had little people get out and do stuff, So, I mean, the kid actually picked one up. But yeah, I think you could be right. And that certainly stands to reason as well, at least in some cases, with like the mini orbs that people see. Maybe they're not spiritual. Maybe there are little UFOs gliding around. But yeah, very interesting. Hero to Zero. This lies in the same vein as why The Simpsons show seems to predict the future. When enough people focus their consciousness on something, it's literally brought into reality. That's a great point. I like that you use the Greatest American Hero logo. That brings back memories. I used to love that show when I was younger. Very cool. I love that. That brings back a lot of memories. Yeah, great point. I think there is merit to this. Now, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, well, and he covered it as well. I was surprised he actually hit that too. Is it something else disguising itself as what the person wants to see or would like to see or might be expecting in some regard? So that's another possibility for some of this, and maybe a lot of it. But I think that spirits can appear however they want. Like, I don't think that they're pressed, like we're pressed into a physical form. So we are going to look like our physical form, and our physical form changes over time. And so when we're young, we look young and vibrant. And when we're old, we look old and tired. And it's just kind of maybe nothing to do with our spiritual self, but everything to do with the function of a body. But spirits aren't in a body. They aren't chained to the physical form like that. So they're not in that concrete, this is where you are. So maybe they can appear like different things. Maybe they can appear like shadow people or like angels or like whatever they want. Just a possibility. But I think the whole idea of us being creators is very, very powerful. I really, truly believe that we are fundamentally creating our experiences, and most often I think we do it on a very subconscious level. And it's not just as simple as, well, I'm going to have a good day today, and you have a good day. It's not just that, although that's certainly an aspect of it. Creating your perception of the world is creating your reality as well. But I'm talking more fundamentally. I think that we do manifest things. Oftentimes we manifest things in our lives that we need to learn from. And they're oftentimes very, very painful things. And I've been through a whole bunch of them. But I think that we do that because it's part of our growth and it's part of our function here. But it is manifest by us because we are the orchestrators of our existence. So that's not to take anything away from the divine or anything like that. I'm not saying that we are powers unto ourselves, but we are part of all of things, all things. And so, with that, we probably have a lot of ability that we haven't even begun to look into or tap or to understand. And that might be some of what all this paranormal stuff is just us experiencing part of our whole reality. So I think that's an amazing article, and I think tulpas are fascinating. Believe what you will. I don't know. I don't understand how they're formed or why they're formed or what is going on there, but I think it's pretty powerful stuff. So in any case, we're going to move to some phantoms and monsters articles here to close out the show tonight in our cryptid corner. And this is Lon Strickler's site. If you're not familiar with phantomsandmonsters.com, it's Lon Strickler's site, and it's a phenomenal repository for a lot of reports and claims that people have had in encountering a lot of strangeness and Fortean topics, a lot of cryptids and such. And it's also the home of Lon's research efforts with he and his associates around the nation that are researching this many phenomena. Like you'll find there's a few people on here researching dogmen phenomena. So you'll find a whole host of dogman encounter stories on Phantoms and Monsters. Lon himself is directly involved into researching the winged humanoid phenomena or Mothman phenomena, especially around the Great Lakes region right now. There seems to be quite a few claims coming out of the Chicago area of these Mothman-like creatures, and he's done some quite a bit of research into that. So you can find a lot about it on there, as well as along with the Singular Fortean Society by the Waylands, who are working with Lon. But it's also a great place to see all the books that Lon has published, and the home of his Phantoms and Monsters podcast, which used to be called Arcane Radio, but it's Phantoms and Monsters podcast now. So check it out. Definitely support Lon's site here and shoot him a visit. But the story we're going to cover first is from December 26th, and I've had this open for a while, but we're going to get to it now. And this is: horrific unknown screaming beast attacks rural Maine cabin at night. Yeah, the woods. There's things out there in them forests, folks. That's all I'm going to say. Ninja Dave says, Mom saw a white dog last night running around inside the house and living room that looked like a Rottweiler named Bubba we used to have until he died years ago from cancer. Wow. That's really cool. I think Ninja Dave, I really believe the pets that we have and that we love stay with us. I think they're just kind of with us until we finally take the journey. Like maybe they wait for us. I don't know, but it's a beautiful thing, especially if it's a family pet. A Maine woman recalls her horrific experience while living in a rural cabin. An unknown screaming beast literally attacked the cabin, stalking the woman and her friend who were inside. It says, I recently received the following account. In 1981, my friends lived in a very rural cabin near Baxter State Park in Maine. The road was traveled only by residents, and you could drive on it and not expect to see any other cars. Well, I was driving up there one night, and as I went around the last bend before reaching the cabin, an 8-foot tall Sasquatch was standing on the side of the road. It was massive. It had to be 4 feet across the shoulders with brownish blonde hair. I then noticed that it was a male. His skin was dark. His face had a long beard that looked both ape-like and human-like. He stood there motionless, looking at me. Uh-oh, got a cough. Sorry about that. His face had a long beard that looked both ape and human-like. He stood there motionless, looking at me. He was not 20 feet from me. Well, I sped past. Sorry. I'm trying to suppress cough. I'm recovering from a cold, so you have to forgive me. I'm sorry. I was freaked out when my headlights were on him and we were actually made eye contact. Oh, it makes my eyes water. He was not 20 feet from me. I sped past and then into my friend's driveway. I ran into the cabin screaming that I'd seen a huge Sasquatch. A few years later, I bought a small property near Mount Blue State Park in Maine, and one winter, a friend was visiting from Utah. My boyfriend and his friends went out on the snowmobiles at night. Later, we were inside the cabin and started hearing this bizarre growls, like no noise I'd ever heard before or since. The growls got louder and louder, and then whatever this was started screaming. Literally shaking the cabin. It was right outside. I ran towards the door and placed a board barricade through the loop. As soon as I did that, something was pulling and shaking the door on the other side. Each time we changed our position in the cabin, that part of the cabin would be attacked. We were terrified. My boyfriend had bought a pistol, so I grabbed it. We climbed the ladder to the bedroom. Whatever that thing was, landed on the roof above us. Its screams were the scariest things you have ever heard, and they're impossible to repeat. Just as we thought our lives were over, we could hear the snowmobiles coming back. Whatever that thing was finally ran off. We told the guys what had happened, and they went out to look for tracks. And at first they thought we were crazy until they saw huge, unknown prints with long claw marks in the snow. Claw marks? There were deep scratches on the window frames and outside walls. My boyfriend was an experienced hunter, and he couldn't explain the prints or the deep claw marks. I soon moved out west to California. There was no way I was staying in that cabin, let alone in Maine. Yeah, that might change your whole opinion of Maine in a hurry. The weird thing is, I don't know what kind of windows the cabin had, but it seemed like it's not really clear from the story, but this thing seemed to know where they were going to be in that cabin, and that's just creepy. Like it's seeing through the walls or something. I don't know. Yeesh. That might even change your whole view on reality. It did for her. She realized Maine sucked, I guess. Nothing against Maine. I think Maine's beautiful, but apparently if you don't like cryptids, it's not where you want to be. This one is more of an abduction story. A young woman's gray alien abduction followed by Pleiadian encounter. It's a video. Oh. I might skip this one. I don't know. We don't really have a video, but I mean, oh, I see. Okay. Oh man, I did so good. Almost got to the whole end without a coughing fit. Oh. Yeesh. 1 second. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. All right. Back to the story. I'm sorry about that. I thought I could get through a whole night without having that happen. And I've gotten much better, but it still just caught me. I've been talking way more than I've talked in probably a week. Or at least the last show, which was, what was that, Saturday night? Yeah. So my apologies. It's almost done. I'm almost there. Just a little bit left. It says in 2012, Elizabeth April, then 18, had gone away to a 10-day spiritual retreat in Los Angeles, California. On the second night, she claims that she was abducted by gray aliens. Yikes. It was the middle of the night. She was dead asleep, and she just remembers waking up and seeing a large head hovering over the top of her. She then realized that it was not humanoid looking. Suddenly, she was surrounded. There was now 3 of these beings in the room, and one was on her left ankle and wrist. One was on her right ankle and wrist, and they started dragging her out of bed into the hallway. The only part of the experience she could not recall is how they got from the hallway to their ship. They put her in a stiff metal chair in the middle of a room. She was paralyzed but could look around. She observed a machine in her periphery on her right side. It had a cylindrical mechanism. It got smaller and smaller the closer it got to her head, and then went into her right ear. Ugh. She sensed they were chipping her. She next remembers being placed in bed. There was 1 drop of blood in her ear. A couple of months later, she was greeted by Pleiadian being that entered her room one evening, and he was an etheric 7-foot-tall male humanoid-looking being. He spoke to her telepathically. Elizabeth, I would love to invite you to a meeting that is being held with the Galactic Federation. Elizabeth insisted that this federation was peaceful and looked for unity. Well, there is a video. I guess she's Elizabeth April, clairvoyant, intuitive, psychic. And that's all we got. So, sorry, maybe I shouldn't have pulled that one up because it does rely a lot on the video. But you can see the video. I'll put the link in the chat. You can check it out on Phantoms and Monsters and watch the video as well if you're interested in more information about what this is about. I'm not really sure. Perhaps it's just an advertisement for a show, which it could be. Here's an interesting one. Speaking of glitches in the Matrix, which may account for some of the missing 411 stuff that we talked about, but you be the judge. But I think glitches in the Matrix are really incredibly profound and may show that we are truly in a multiverse of sorts. And sometimes we pop through and pop back, and maybe we're always transitioning realities and don't really know it. But I think it's an interesting phenomena. So, couple experiences glitches in the Matrix, or glitches, while walking home. Ohio couple is walking home from the grocery store when they suddenly start to experience unexplained oddities, including strange acting people, sound changes, and lost time. Goes on to say, my partner and I were walking home from the grocery store in October 2022, and it's about 6 blocks from the store to our house, along a busy street in our small Ohio city. As we're walking and chatting, we both observed 2 men smoking cigars on the side of the road. Well, we pass by them, and they both look at us. They start making weird comments that seemed aggressive. We both had the feeling it was somehow directed towards us. We didn't look back, and we just kept walking. At this point, we realize everything has gone very quiet, and there are no cars passing by us. The cars up ahead aren't moving, and we can hear music coming from a cafe at the end of the block. Then someone on the other side of the road that we can hear but not see is completely freaking out, screaming, and just going crazy. Ooh, that's horrible. Everything felt so unsettling to both of us, and we comment on the quiet and how it was so odd. We reached the end of the block where the cafe is, and it's like we've been thrown into a wall of noise. We suddenly hear cars, and they all start moving past loudly. Bikes start going by, ringing bells, and basically all the city sounds come back in full force. It was so incredibly bizarre to go from this unnatural, unsettling quiet to everything back to normal suddenly. We spoke about it and both experienced this in the exact same way. I also had an inexplicable feeling that we had been at a different time at that moment. Not sure why, but it was just a feeling. We walk home feeling a bit unsettled. We also pass two guys on the street who look exactly the same, with messed up, freaky, inhuman faces. They gave off extremely aggressive vibes. We again had the same feeling of, this isn't right. We get home and our son acted like we had been out for ages. I checked on my phone when we had checked out at the grocery store, and the walk was usually takes 10 minutes, took over 30 minutes. I don't know what happened, but even a week later, I felt shaken by it. I actively avoid walking down the same block now for the past 2 months. It seems so small, but we were both totally freaked out by it. It all just felt so wrong and sinister. Have you ever heard of a similar experience? I can't get it out of my head, and it's so weird that my partner and I experienced it all exactly the same way. By MP. It says, note, because of the time differential, I believe the couple experienced a time slip or glitch. It's difficult to determine when it actually occurred or happened multiple times, but very odd account. Yeah, it sure is. I think those are incredibly interesting because they don't seem to... there was the people there at the beginning of it, just standing by the side of the road, smoking cigars, and then seeing two other creepy looking people with screwed up faces. I don't know. It's almost like the intro and the exit. I don't know what to make of it. It's very, very strange stuff. But again, I don't know. You be the judge. Incredibly interesting stuff. What are we doing for time? I guess we are about there. Wow. Well, we made it, I guess. I only had one coughing fit. Can't hold that against me, right? I mean, I did come on to do a show when I probably shouldn't have, but I just love doing the shows. I just love being here. And I love getting together with you guys talking about this strange stuff. So, I don't know. Anybody's guess what's going on in all this stuff? Leslie Navalta, good to meet you. You need an inhaler. You mean one of these? I used it just before the show. Yeah, I have an inhaler. Thank you, though. I have mild asthma as well, so it makes these kind of colds double tough because whenever they go to my lungs, it just takes me a lot longer than usual to get through it because my lungs are just kind of wimpy or something. I don't know, but I am getting better. I don't expect I'll have many more days of dealing with this, hopefully, unless it's going to rear another one of its Hydra heads and and raise hell with me some other way. But yeah, I'm doing okay. But yeah, I like looking up your Chucky Danger. That's another new name. There was a worm thing in my belly, in the belly button in the Matrix. Yeah, I remember that creepy thing. That was sucked. It was like kind of a worm, but kind of a machine, like a tracking machine. Yeah, that was gross. Great shows as always. Thank you, Nathan. Nate, I appreciate it. Hope you're better soon, Brent. I am. I really am better. The other version of me, you would have swore it was Darth Vader in here reading. It was pretty rough. Paramedic, maybe fire in the sky if they put it in his eyes, though. Yeah, that was creepy. I'm going to reach out to Travis Walton and try to have a talk with him. I hear he's a really nice guy. I've never met him personally, but it would be a great discussion to hear his stories. Prayers, Brent, for your complete healing, positive vibrations from the Portal peeps. Thank you, Wonder Woman. And again, I am feeling much better. It's just, it's just the cleansing part of all of this is what takes the longest. So I still, still not 100%, but I'm feeling about 85%. It's just still get the itchy coughing, tickly coughing fits. So I think that's the cleaning out part is what it is. So just all got to come out. But thank you. I'm sorry for the coughing fit. I did my best, but only had one. That's pretty good, I think. If I got to have any, just one is good. So we love being here with you. It's always a fun time. Thank you, Ninja Dave. I appreciate it. Good night, Mom. I love you too. Great to see you. Thanks, Mom. Squatch Talks podcast. How you doing, buddy? Great show, bud. Happy New Year. You too, buddy. It's great to see you stop in. I appreciate it. 2 weeks later, still hacking. I hope not, Pyromedic. It should be better. The problem is that I had one thing before Christmas, got all the way better, went to Minnesota, had a great holiday with my mom and family there, and then came home, but I had to spend 9 hours in the airport, and you know you're going to come in contact with stuff in an airport, my God. And so then I got home, I was like, uh-oh. You feel that thing in your nose where it's like starting to like gear up the machine to mass produce mucus. It's like, oh no. So I got something again, but it's been much, much better. So Mom, I've got Mucinex. I said at the start of the show, thank you, Naysay. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, tomorrow, Naysay is doing a memorial show for Kev Baker. And so I'm going to appear on there for a little bit. And hopefully you guys can check it out. Naysay, do you got a URL for that? I think you sent me one. I think. Let me put it in here quick. I'm just starting to become myself again. So, oh, okay. I don't know when exactly it'll be. Which channel is it on, Naysay? Is it on your on yours or where? It's Friday. Sorry, Friday. Thought it was tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Oh yeah, you said the 6th. I kept thinking it was the 5th. So it's Friday. The Kev Baker thing is Friday. Yep, and there it is. I'm going to show this. Okay. So anyway, guys, that's about all that we have time for tonight. Thank you so much. Again, I'm sorry for my drippy, coffee, sneezy, liquid state, but I am getting better. I should be all better by Friday for all of the fun, both the tribute show and then the portal show that'll be happening later. 7 p.m. Pacific time right here on YouTube. You can find me again going into the portal. It'll be just me and you guys. So hopefully you'll join me. But if you're brand new, please get subscribed. I'd love to have you become part of what we're doing here. And ring the bell so you know what's going on and when it's going on. Because notifications are sometimes the best way. In case you're not familiar with the schedule, at least you get notified when we're going live. So, all right, guys, that's all I got. I'm going to lean back for a while. So, but remember, we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day and remember to laugh as much as you can. And I'll see you Friday. If you're in the Discord, watch for the question of the week coming up either probably tomorrow, but maybe tonight. Just keep an eye out. And if you're in the Discord community and you find great stuff, just post links up there in the relevant categories because I always like checking those things out. All right, guys, that's it. I'm all out of gas. So good night. We'll see you on Friday night right here on YouTube.